Hey, Trojan Horse, how are you?
Yeah, what'll it be, Hand? You trying to find a hacker? You can just ask, you know.
Oh, sorry. Yes, we're looking for a hacker named Jailbreak.
I know a guy can hook you up.
Welcome to the Firewall.
His favorite food, chimichangas.
Chimichangas?
Fireball.
Krav Maga.
Krav Maga.
Major laser.
Major laser. When I do that? Skate or die?
Access denied.
I'm a fireball.
Gotta find that
Philippa.
email.
Sue.
I think I can access
Deborah.
trash.
And
I got it. Addie.
Howdy.
Access granted.
That's it. That is the only security awareness video you are going to need from here on out. I'll explain later, coming up here on another episode of OT Exposed Raw. What's up, everybody? It's Friday. It's another episode of OT Exposed Raw. I'm your host, Clint Bodungeon, and before I explain why I picked that flavor video this week, let's go ahead and bring in our co-host with the most and the least all at the same time, our Dutch oven, Pascal Ackerman.
Woo! Friday again. Ready for the weekend.
Yep, I
gotta
ready.
say, if we could make it as simple as the intro video to teach people about cybersecurity and the risks, man, we'd be rolling.
Well, let me tell you why I picked that video.
Yeah.
So, as we know, one of the biggest problems with allowing all this ransomware in, and the problem with some of these recent things in the news with it was a simple password or weak credentials or something like that. In the end, it really boils down to people still don't understand the basics. They're still doing weak passwords and all this stupid bullshit. So the bottom line is my kids watched that scene from Emoji Movie. And it was about a 10-minute clip, and I kind of chopped it up because I have elite editing skills. But sometimes. Anyway, my kids watched that video and got it. Right afterwards, my kids were coming to me saying, Daddy, should I change the password on my Kindle? And I said, you don't have one. He goes, why not, Daddy? You're a security person. We should have a password. And they got it, right? And so I figured if my kids can get it, maybe some adults might get it. Maybe we need to dumb it down that much because some people are either that stupid or they don't care. And we talked about on a previous episode how you fix this whole you don't care attitude. But anyway, that's why I picked that. And so there it is, because I think people are stupid. Most of them. Most of you are stupid. I'm telling you that right now.
And they don't care about being stupid too. So that's that.
No, because there's a difference between being dumb or not understanding or being ignorant and just being stupid, right? I mean, it's damn near to the point of a hold my beer moment. I'm going to click on this because I don't care. So anyway, let's move on. I want to get into our conversation this week, and I want to bring on our guest because I think this is going to be another fun conversation. Why? Because they're all fun conversations. We don't have anything but fun conversations on this show.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing it.
Well, that's not true. I mean, I'm not getting paid to do this. So, well, maybe I kind of am. I don't know. But anyway, I mean, it's part of my job. So our next guest, really, at first, the only reason we're going to bring him on because we thought he was Leonard from Big Bang Theory. But it turns out that he actually is an OT security expert. So let's please welcome everybody, James Cabe. I knew it. I got him.
That was good, Leonard. I like it. So I'm just about that that's nearly schizophrenic occasionally. Yeah, so that pretty much fits the bill.
Well, and it just so happened that you're also wearing a suit and being all proper today and everything too. I was like, oh man, this is going to be perfect.
Perfect. That's
So-
like you planned it. And thanks for hiding that logo, by the way, because we're not getting paid for advertising.
I was gonna say you're not getting paid for the green logo, right? So it's
No.
definitely just there.
Peach
So.
coffee is going to be
Daddy Warbucks coffee. Whatever.
You're not allowed to make me laugh when I'm drinking, dude.
Sorry.
Stop that.
Sorry.
No.
He's got us.
Hey, man, it's a hard knocks life, man. It's a hard knocks life. So, got to go there. But because I guess, you're on a client site, so that's why you're dressed up, which is why I made a point to make sure I'm drinking today. And I'm drinking really good. I'm drinking Whistle Pig today. So, salute, because you can't.
No. Painful,
I'm staying,
but you don't
I'm
know what's
staying
in
with
it,
vodka.
so careful.
Just a tiny bit of vodka.
All right. So, hey, why don't you introduce yourself to those of you that don't know you? I've known you for a little while now. I think I actually met you at HughesecCon for the first time in person. Anyway, we've known each other on LinkedIn for quite a while, but I met you in person for the first time at one of the HughesecCon events, and we've been in love ever since. And so,
One of my favorite events, by the way. So make it every year I can. So Sam Van Ryder and Michael Farnham are fantastic people. They host they're probably the reasons why everybody goes to HughesecCon and there's no B-sides in Houston, Texas, is because of HughesecCon. There's just no need for a B-sides here. So, so it's about, pretty much serves both. So yeah, it is a shameless plug. I like those guys a lot. I love the conference, and it is very OT specific conference. So if you go to S4 and you miss HughesecCon, I'd probably have a little less respect for you. So
yeah. So although I don't remember half the people I talked to at either of actually S4 that's the Beer ISAC mothership, right? So that's the ones where I'm like, I talked to you during that event. Sorry. But no. By the way, but yeah, so you know what? Maybe I should go ahead and do that. Both HughesecCon as well as S4 are both back on as of right now. Hopefully, Delta variant doesn't wipe everything out, but they're back live. So anyway, let's get back to our guests. So James, please introduce yourself.
So my job, it's complicated, as Pascal said before we got on here. So I've spent some time at various security vendors, most recently at Microsoft, and I don't want to hear any chuckles in the background about them being a security vendor. It was different 5 years ago, and I think where we could probably get a couple of chuckles, but I think days have changed to some degree. At least they've gotten the religion, and the things have changed there. They've ended up buying a lot of startups.
As long as you don't want to print anything, right?
Well, yeah, we'll get into that in just a little bit. So careful.
Go ahead. No, I agree.
Ahead.
Times have changed a lot for Microsoft.
They just announced their new Linux version, right? So that tells you exactly where they're headed.
Yep.
So anyways, worked for Microsoft through acquisition of a OT cybersecurity company called CyberX, which was one of the first or original OT cyber companies specifically based on deep packet inspection. Spent a year with them developing their channel, training all their global SI and VAR people. I put the training together myself. And then I just exited for a little bit to go try to do some field CISO work for another big vendor that shall go unnamed. But it was one of those things where private consultancy was calling, and it almost made more sense for me. So here I'm just the day after getting back from the land of the mouse, and already back at a client's office from 7 o'clock this morning, and I'll probably won't leave here until 7 o'clock tonight. So,
wow. Well, it's a good. It's either a good thing or a bad thing, however you want to spin it. That we didn't know that you were leaving or going to leave or whatever, because I think ThreatGen would have tried to make an offer, but you missed out, man. You missed out. Can't take it back now.
Free coffees all year long.
Yeah, we pay everybody in Daddy Warbucks coffee.
Oh, that's good. I just need my Steam account paid for, and I think I'll be okay. So as long as you can do that, we're good. So I just got a new VR chair, and I'm addicted to Star Wars Squadrons right now. So that's my new one. So.
Yeah. You know me. I'm not really big into gaming or anything like that. So or Star Wars, or
I
all
like
right.
Star Wars because Star Trek is the semi-socialist version of the future. I kind of like the capitalist version, which is definitely Star Wars. So.
Nice.
I can accept that answer, but you were on slippery slope there, my friend.
Yeah, you forget where he comes from. But
oh no,
all right, guys.
No forgetting.
So on today's show, I mean, there's not a lot. There's not a lot that in terms of the usual news feeds that we get coming through. This week has been a little lighter because there's other news going on over in Afghanistan and things like that that have really kind of rightfully so kind of taken the spotlight. But there have been some interesting things and a lot of things to talk about here. And I think that this conversation will definitely be a lot more free flowing than normal without the usual news bits. But there's a couple things, like there's a new 0 day out we could talk about. There's the new CISA guidelines that are out that we want to discuss. And there's some other things, there's, S-bombs and zero trust. And, while I'm at it, if I'm going to go, through the whole list, I might as well accuse myself of using buzzwords. But, so, what do you guys want to tackle first? You want to tackle CISA? You want to tackle zero trust? Where do you want to go with this?
I like the CISA stuff. So let's talk about things being attacked right now. So we have like a kind of a top 10 from CISA, but you guys can pick it apart. I sent you a list, actually previous list. So if you want me to share it out real quick, I could definitely get that
go ahead and share it. Yeah, if you want to share that out. When this is funny, we're starting to look like a webinar. Normally we have all this stuff teed up ahead of time where I can just drop stuff in.
But this was different. The guest wasn't cooperating the way we normally expect people to do.
No, he had to make sure there were no private client information and that kind of stuff, which is boring.
Yeah, I got to make sure I don't share out the entire desktop because I've got like passwords and all kinds of stuff like that, trying to figure out networking here in the cloud, which I know makes Pascal itchy. So
I already saw those passwords.
There's a lot of things that make Pascal itchy. Let's not talk about that.
We need to have a talk about your password policy, by the way, but I just saw them.
Yeah.
I'm not impressed.
So top 10, it looks like all VPNs, as far as the eye can see, and or bad URL web requests. I could say that easily. So, the top 4 are actually typically all VPN boxes and or ADCs, and that presents a problem because they're very, very web facing, right? So I wouldn't say easily done, but there's just no way to protect them because they're the things that are supposed to be out front. What do you guys think of that? Since they're supposed to be out there on the internet, what does that look like, and how has that created a problem?
This is a giant problem in my opinion, because it is out on the internet. It is open for everybody to probe as many times as they want to, right? A lot of times these type of accounts, they don't lock out. They allow you to try it over and over again, and it's just a 24/7 target. So if there's a vulnerability in there, that's a big deal in my opinion.
Well, let's take a look at the IOCs. That's a good comment, right? So the IOCs for at least for the PulseSecure one, which is being used heavily by evidently, as many people say, it's the Chinese. So attribution, I think sometimes is either hard or impossible. But that aside, it seems to be been attributed to UNC 2630, this PulseSecure thing, and it's a crafted URI, essentially, the curl script, if you want to get the data that they want to walk the user accounts out of it, and then use those to essentially pop the box afterward. So that's really hard to protect. And I think it's the same exact thing with the Citrix box too, even worse, that it's actually supposed to be an ADC and WAF at the same time. Because at least you can stick this PulseSecure behind a WAF filter for this IOC, and then pretty much come out with something protected very, very quickly without having to even patch it or go up firmware revisions, which can mean contract issues and all kinds of other types of problems if you let it fall out of support, which is typically what we're looking at here when we see these IOCs being exploited. It's something falling out of contract, nobody has firmware upgrades, and all of a sudden everybody starts walking it, from whatever crawler that they actually have to do it. The one that I find that's interesting was the Kring one. for specific ports, because I know that most of the people put these things on the admin ports for those particular addresses. And usually people think, putting it on 10443 is a great way to kind of hide that administrative console. I'm surprised so many people are putting their admin consoles without using VPN, since VPN is so easy with that particular, firewall. It literally takes 5 or 6 clicks to set up a personal VPN. So it blows my mind people have allowed the admin ports for these out on the web. So what are y'all's thoughts?
I'd like to back up for a minute and point out that if you look at the CVE dates on these, we got 2017, 2018 in there. If people are not updating this stuff, you're asking for trouble, right? You have something sitting on the internet, exposed for everybody to attack, and then you're not keeping updates. Although I did read an article on, and I've pointed this out with Cisco in particular before, is that they found vulnerabilities in one of their products that they say they don't support anymore, and they basically let it slide that way. So if you have a Cisco device that's not supported, even for a single month, they're going to drop you like a bomb.
Oh yeah, a lot of this gets tracked by middle management, really. Those contracts, support contracts, and things like that, and knowing what's up to date and getting it from their team. And we've seen a slaughter of that, the middle management in a lot of companies. I know I have here in Houston anyway, simply because some shrinking in various markets and stuff like that has put a lot of these people out in the street looking for jobs. I see a lot of middle management with open to work that I knew from before, in the field that have open to work symbols on their stuff right now. So some of it's because of that, to be quite honest with you. The ebb and flow of the industry, has made some of this stuff, almost easy to attack just because of that. The situation with remote work maybe had these people open it up to the outside world without realizing that they hadn't updated in a very, very, very long period of time. And this was an easy answer for them. Hey, we have this thing already. Let's go ahead and open it up. And when they did, all of a sudden they hadn't updated and locks started getting popped on them. So I think a part of it can be attributed to the fact that exactly what I said in the beginning of the pandemic on my LinkedIn was, this is not going to go well, especially on the remote work side of the house, not even for capacity side, but also just for the silliness that's going to happen out of it. And I think we're seeing finally some of the end results of that over this past year, and conflating into OT issues, right?
Yep. And just to throw out some general advice to the listeners is that there are a few mitigating things you can do right off the bat with this. And I find it a lot with our customers as well. If you expose anything to the internet, be it a web server, be it a VPN, look at where your customers or your users are, right? If nobody from China is supposed to log in or connect to your external devices, put a filter on there, right? Never allow any IP addresses outside of the regions that you're actually expecting people to connect from. That's a huge improvement already over it. And then start logging this stuff, start looking at your event logs and keep an eye on things, and keep an eye on bulletin boards for any known vulnerabilities popping up. You got to be on top with patching this stuff.
Yeah. And it's not good enough to break the internet internally to say, oh, we're going to reutilize public, networks from, AppNic, because I've seen people do that before. Oh, we're going to break the internet so nobody will ever be able to get to these systems because we're actually using AppNic addresses internal to our own network, so they'll never be able to reach it from point A to point B, and that's kind of
It's the same as
that way.
the same as what you said with changing your IP address from 443 to 10443, right? It's hiding, it's security by obscurity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, at least that one we all know scanning is expensive. So even if you just change it to, a different, high level port, it would be a little bit better. But these are actual known IOCs that they're scanning for very, very specifically, and popping the locks really quickly on a lot of this stuff. And, I understand people not updating some stuff. I'm not making any apologies for anybody down there, but I've been in operations for a long time before I started working for security vendors, and then only listen to other people's problems afterwards. It's tough, man. Keeping this stuff up to date and, having outages when you have to patch it and everything else like that, that means lost weekends. soccer games. Right now, I'm doing this to miss out on taking my kid to baseball practice, right? So,
don't make me feel guilty.
Yours are sitting on the couch in your little office and being
No,
quiet.
mine are on the way to Austin. Mine are
Oh.
on the way to Lake LBJ in Austin. So no, I got a kitchen pass for the entire weekend. So come on over, party at my house. Shit, my wife's watching.
Are you making your own beer?
Do I make my own beer? Not anymore. I have, but I don't anymore. I just buy other people's shitty beer.
I just set up a keezer in the house specifically to do more of the lagering process actually at the house. So I'll have 2 taps for actual serving and 1 tap, 2 for lagering.
So how do you monitor your lagering? Do you do lagering monitoring? Just
I do.
Bad joke.
Ouch. Yeah.
All right. Hey, so real quick. So we were talking about the IOCs and the CISA alerts and everything, and Pascal alluded to some remediations for that kind of stuff and mitigations. There's one thing I want to look at here, and that is that's actually not the alerts. Where's the I guess, is that it? My feed's not my it's not it's
smaller.
Yeah, it's not
you're only paying for half internet now.
Yeah, I am. There we go. How about that? Does that look better?
Hey.
Yeah. So I think this is the PDF. Yeah. So CISA put out these guidelines recently on preventing ransomware attacks, and I've had a LinkedIn post going for quite some time that got a lot of activity and a lot of interest from people, and it was basically me kind of putting out my thoughts on, and I was on the fence. Look, I'm a supporter of CISA. I've always been a supporter of ICS cert prior to CISA, but my concern was, what is CISA putting out advertising for their free services for this kind of stuff going to do, and I heard really good comments from both sides, right? I've heard that, small businesses, smaller businesses, medium-sized businesses that can't afford the full assessments or whatever, this is good for them. Of course, my comment, which has been quoted numerous times now to my demise throughout the internet, that if they can't afford the assessments, then what are they going to do when they need the technology to mitigate, et cetera, et cetera. So, but anyway, my point was that, I'd kind of dropped it, and I was like, I see pros and cons to both sides. However, then they put out this piece of crap. And yes, I'm calling it out. This is a piece of crap when it comes to ICS. Okay. Now I know that this isn't just ICS focused and everything like that, but you got to acknowledge the fact that you are talking critical infrastructure and you are talking ICS and OT. And first of all, I'm just going to make my 2 points and then I'll turn it over to you guys. But number one, which it rubs me the wrong way. After every little thing they bring up to do, there's a little blurb in there. Oh, by the way, we do this for free. Oh, by the way, we provide this to free for our service, for our customers, whatever. It's like, okay, we get it. And maybe they think they're helping by putting this out there and saying, hey, we do this for free, by the way, in case you need or whatever. I still think it's a shoddy play because, and I don't know the rules or the laws on this, but I'd always heard that government's not supposed to compete with private industry. I don't know. So either way, yeah, I'm a little sour about that one, but that's just an opinion. All right. That's just me. However, there are some glaring things in here that makes this document a real piece of crap. And you know what? I know that friends of mine actually had a hand in writing this document, and I'd tell them over a beer even worse that, what I think. But, but what they're talking about here is there's, and I'm not going to read through it. You guys can read it, whatever, the audience can read it. But what is in here? There's things that says patch quickly and often. You're not going to do that in ICS and OT.
We're talking ICS?
Well, that's why I said this document isn't just for ICS and OT, obviously.
Yeah.
But when you're talking critical infrastructure, you have to address the fact. So there's 2 things in here that really just made me spit out my beer. Number one was perform vulnerability scanning, regular vulnerability scanning, and patch often and regular. And I'm just looking at this going, this is This is
I can just
horseshit.
imagine
I'll
the
turn it
OT
over to you.
operators. I can just imagine the site managers and operators and the PEs actually looking at something like this and just shaking their head, because you could just imagine the cybersecurity side of the house going, oh yeah, we could now run Tenable or Qualys, not to call them out, but to actually run vuln scans, actively on some of this equipment, during a production run. I could just imagine the horror that crosses their face as that happens, because I've actually seen myself. As a story, shut down an entire wind farm with a vulnerability scan accidentally. Right? This is the second time in my lifetime I shut down something major, because somebody had transcribed something or not put something in a Excel spreadsheet that I turned into CSV that then I scripted to do the thing, right? And because they omitted the network and didn't tell me where it was, or got it wrong, and it was the wrong side of the network, because there was a corporate side and then an OT side of the house on this particular one. It went out and scanned all the equipment in that particular subnet, and all of a sudden they're calling me up and going, "What's going on?" And
what are you doing?
It's negative 40 degrees in upstate New York, right? At midnight,
Always.
icing conditions of horrible. I mean, Pascal knows this kind of weather. I don't know why humans live in that kind of stuff. That's the reason why I moved to Houston. And you got engineers having to go climb towers, and push the power button on PLCs, that control big wind farms, because otherwise you have a big, gigantic power outage, because we're right in the middle of an ice storm. People are running their heaters at full blast. Turning off half the power to the city would probably be bad. And that's exactly what happened, right? So, vuln scanning, not bad, but bad, So,
well, I mean, that's the number one no in assessments in OT security is don't run active scanning on production networks.
Scanning, passive is fine.
Yeah. Well, I guess I wouldn't call passive scanning. I mean,
no, that's sniffing.
Keep packet inspection. How about that?
Yeah, packet inspection. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah. So, I mean, any more to say on this? I mean, obviously, it goes without saying that, like, they could have gone a lot deeper with these recommendations. I really get the feeling that the team or the person that really wrote this up just wasn't comfortable with ICS and OT, or didn't know a lot about it, and they really didn't make an effort to focus these on ICS and OT. And I think that a large part, if not the majority part, of CISA's audience are industrial operators in terms of the end users.
Here's the problem. I think that is probably CISA sees it. So I'm gonna be devil's advocate for the time being. Putting together the healthcare stuff to actually have a marketplace where the government can then redirect you to private corporations to get a problem solved. And so we're just gonna, at the risk of doing what other silly people have done, is conflate, network healthcare to personal healthcare. Okay, so Pascal, just don't beat me over the head with that one. All right. So, but in this particular case, setting up those statewide, trading companies, or like the way to go get yourself health insurance, at least in America, it took them forever to get it done. It took them billions of dollars to make it happen, and then all this training and stuff like that. And they looked at that and they said, well, we have a problem right now. How can we solve it right now? And so I think that was the reason why they did this, even though it's well intended, but stepping on private, the actual private firms and stuff like that. I think that's the reason why they did it, because let's go solve the problem right now. We'll go back and fix it later by redirecting them to the private sector again. At least that's my hope, and my guess at the intention of it is that they wanted to solve the problem right now. They're considering us in wartime right now, and in wartime, you tend to step on private industry a little bit more. And so, I don't know how bad it is, because I'm not allowed to see behind some of the curtains, right? And I'm sure it's worse than I suspect, because I've seen the public stuff, and I've also worked in it, and I know from past experiences 20 years ago what I was even seeing on oil and gas rigs, right? As people were using BearShare and LimeWire, and then all of a sudden weird IP addresses from the AppNIC were downloading entire production databases, from that because the default drive share was C drive, right? So stuff like that goes on, and they have a little bit of a wartime mindset to it. So I don't think it's a long-term thing, knowing the people that both you and I know. But I'm sure if we get to see behind the curtain a little bit, we would be horrified enough to understand the stepping on of private industry. But I would at least have a nod of, here are the people that are qualified to do it, that have, the vendors that we know that or can be in there and stuff like that, and have that list to be something to be signed up for, where they would have done a light redirect to begin with, or some sort of program after they do the scan to hand it off to private industry that's in their particular region. So I would prefer, as a second step, them to start going to have the soft redirect back to private industry again, to your point. So, but I know why I'm guessing why they did it.
Yeah.
And the CISA is, I wouldn't say garbage, but it's good advice. But there's a reason why I put in the IOCs in my list. I don't want to just give you the top 10 vulnerabilities of what's going on right now with any kind of, hey, how do you solve some of this stuff, right? Can there be a solution to the problem? Well, there's the top 2 right there, and that's how you solve it real quick. You can throw the FortiGate behind a WAF real quick, which is real simple, or put a WAF protection on it. Really not that hard, especially if you're going to put out a web interface. You probably should have it behind some sort of WAF policy at the very least. And then on the other side of it, which you can actually do with the FortiGate inside of itself with an extra VDOM. Then there's Boris Dogood. He's a genius out of Europe. Even has a how-to about how to do that sort of stuff, to do web scanning about who's trying to come into your admin interfaces. So you can even do that if you're not going to update your FortiGate or CANT because you've fallen off services. And then the Citrix ADC and some of the other stuff and the Pulse Secure, all I can tell you there is that there's even more stuff that you can throw in front of them to have those things mitigated. But you definitely always don't want to just talk about the problem, but you talk about the damn mitigation at the same time. And to your point, Clint, that's exactly what that thing did not do. Is it did not give you specifics on how to lock down some of the top 10 stuff that they were talking about. It was so vanilla and generic, without any kind of indicators in it, without any kind of real data to use, that you're like, this is useless. Why even waste the paper or PDF or CPU cycles to put it out, right?
I wish I could have found somebody smarter from Europe, but
yeah, I was still looking. Unless you read this as a marketing brochure, right? They're saying, oh, you should do this, and we can do that, and you should do this, and we can do that, and you should do this because we can do that as well. Maybe they're trying to get people the way I'm seeing this.
It was a very marketing centric.
Right?
It was an advertisement for their services.
I think somebody just pulled something generic from the IT side and posted it on there. Maybe this is somebody bringing the wrong link into this. Maybe it shouldn't even have been here. But it really feels like here's some generic IT side best practices around protecting against ransomware. And that's landed on the CISA.
Well, I mean, think about it. That's a typical marketing sales ploy, right? You give a brochure that gives some high-level generic advice that doesn't have all the answers, and then you say, call us for help. That's exactly what this is. I know because I create that shit.
But by the way, for the listeners, if you want to know what you really have to do, call us.
Yeah. So, we're just going to give you tips. Just a tip. By the way, so I want to address this real quick because somebody had a really good question, and we're probably not going to spend a lot of time talking this, but I want to get a one-liner from each of you. But the reason I don't want to talk about this too much because I actually have I want to talk about a full episode of training, education, certifications coming up. But I want to. This is a really good question. This person asked how what we think of and how we look at certifications offered by the various vendors and organizations. And I'll start off with my bit, and it's real simple. I used to think that certifications were just, they were too overvalued, overused, and they had a time and place. But for the most part, you can have someone that can exam cram, it's really good at taking tests, but can't do anything in the field. But here's the thing. Because I'm becoming more and more a champion of workforce development, and there's actually an article that I'm putting out next week about the outrageous job requirements in job postings for OT security personnel and job openings that, I'm really looking at certifications a different way now. And that if you look at certifications as an entry-level quality, like you would an intern or a college graduate, I would say that due to the overcomplication and the job offers, the job postings that are looking for, golden unicorns that poop sherbet. You're literally, you're killing the job market, right? You're inflating the skills gap by making it hard to get into the industry. And so I look at certifications. In fact, I have several people that I'm mentoring right now, telling them, get this certification and this one, and that'll get your foot in the door as an alternative to getting a master's degree in nuclear science, OT security. But anyway, the bottom line is that certifications, in my opinion, have their time and their place and their use, and increasingly so, as long as they're used properly. That's it from me.
I'm going to back that up because that makes perfect sense. Ideally, everybody has this 20 years of in the plant floor experience before they go cybersecurity. They take that part, but most people are not, right? A lot of people nowadays who want to get into OT security have never been inside of a plant, and for whatever reason, they come straight out of school. They had a different career before. They want to change careers or whatever. Having the right certification at least tells them, okay, hey, I'm interested and I'm backing that up because I took the effort to go and have these certifications.
That's good. So I'm going to play devil's advocate to the two of you, just because
you can.
I agree with most of your the premise of what
Al Pacino or Keanu Reeves.
It's great to have certification. Practical experience only comes from something that you've proven, right, over a long period of time. Can you go out and take those certifications and actually do something with them, right? So that's one of the big problems is when people are going to look for people with jobs, is they don't also look at the time period that they're at specific companies when they got the certification, and then doing that, got the certification and they were at this company for 6 years. Were they doing that job? Do we have like keywords in there that says that they've used that certification? And there's none of that. You could probably use an ML to do some of those things to say, hey, that person's probably certified to do this, this, and that. And then probably be able to come up with, hey, do they have enough field experience to go along with that certification? But I'll tell you, the biggest problem we have in our industry right now is not certifications or if they're good or bad or indifferent, because you can always have a paper tiger, as you said, and you still can have them today. Is simply the fact, as I get up on my bully pulpit here, there's no journeyman, there's no master, there is no apprentice. There's none of this apprenticeship stuff. There's none of the things that actually would make it into even a professional engineer, because even as a professional engineer or a doctor, and that's what we're looking at here, even if we or do an electrician or carpenter, there is no OJT that you're expected to have a 4 to 5 years of in-field study and work before after you get the certification to get that master or the journeyman level experience. So there's nothing.
Well, I will say, albeit don't laugh at me, but there are certifications that attempt to do that, like CISSP, says you have to have so many years of experience. So there are some certifications that are attempting to do that, and I respect that.
Those are the valuable ones.
Yeah, and I like your approach. I do think that there should be some sort of tiered level, apprentice, journeyman, master, and the certifications. Because let's be fair, there are things like, for example, and I'm gonna play on the side of our engineers out there. There are certain things that do require years of study in college. I believe that you should have an electrical engineering degree for certain engineering type jobs and positions and things like that. But there are other things out there that don't necessarily need to have 20 years of experience and a master's degree out of college to get a job in security.
I just tried to train a whole bunch of Jacobs engineers, when I was over at CyberX, that have their EEs and MEs in deep packet inspection. And I'll tell you, I'd put any one of those college educated kids that actually came out of a comp sci up against them any day to actually figure out what was actually going on with the stuff. And and be able to get things out of the product much faster than the PE or ME. Now, you need to have one of those people along with you once you go to the plant floor to see how things are connected and what's what, because when you're dealing with those systems, they're deterministic, and the determinism is one of the things that they don't really teach in comp-sci necessarily, right? Or even any kind of infotech kind of program, is that determinism about, hey, if we make just a little electrical fluctuation by plugging something in here, what the hell is going to happen with the rest of the system, right? So an EE would probably be able to know, especially with field experience, would be able to know that pretty darn quickly. The comp sci or infotech, graduate would come out and, let's just plug this thing in right here and we're good to go, and bad results can happen from that.
Look, this thing will give me 4 to 20 milliamps. That should be enough for my light bulb.
Yeah, and I think suffice it to say, right, there is a time and a place and a purpose for college degrees, for certain levels of experience and certain certifications, and everything can use improvement, but there's a time and place for all of it.
Well, we need to have a better professional organization for our own people that would that would actually allow this idea behind journeyman or apprentice, journeyman, master type situation, even after your certification. I think CISSP is phenomenal for that particular reason. I think that the SAN stuff even kind of takes that same perspective with the different leveling. And we know some of the people that run some of those particular programs. Now, I think some of those are not locked in at all, CISSP, so it's kind of loosey-goosey. And then I think some of them are too locked in to only specific people to where they almost use them as their own marketing.
Well, it comes down to validation and enforcement of the levels and of the credentials too. That doesn't happen, right?
And who makes those rules? Well, that comes out of a professional situation. I'm myself, I'm a Mason, so I believe in the levels, and I do believe in the certifications, and I do believe in those sorts of things, right? It comes into it. But I myself have let more letter acronyms fall off the back of my name than I even care to go get anymore in my entire lifetime, right? So like I've, had my CCNP, I had, went to go CCIE written, then, it ended up being way too expensive to go take the practical. So then I moved on to, Citrix stuff, and then I moved on to Fortinet stuff. So I've actually taken all these. I got my CCEA, and then I got my Fortinet into C5, and then et cetera, so on and so forth. So I've gotten them. They're all lapsed. As a matter of fact, actually, Microsoft's gotten so bad, pardon me, Microsoft, I still love you people, that you actually have to retake their certification almost every year as an update because the stuff changes so quickly, especially in the cloud. So you can't even secure the cloud anymore unless you take the refresher almost every year. So that's very onerous, right? So in that world, what do you?
Couple months to prepare.
Almost mean nothing.
It takes you a couple months to prepare, so it's a full-time job just to keep up with any variety of certifications.
And there is my big problem right there, right?
So I guess you could say, James, that much of the certification process allows people to be hoodwinked.
I do like your thought behind the internship or the apprenticeship, but where do you find it nowadays? I know my dad, he's a plumber. When he studied this thing, he went out for years and years with a senior plumber, right? They taught him everything, and then he took on and he brought the next one in, and so you don't find that in cybersecurity. It's even worse. A lot of times you have to have the certifications before you can get the job, but like with CISSP, you have to have the job, or at least the experience of the job, before you can get the certification. So it's really difficult for people starting into it. I think certifications have their place. It needs to be easy to get into the field, and then once you want to start expanding yourself, you ramp up in different types of certifications.
Well, that's part of that is the loss of those call centers here in the Americas. Is the loss of a lot of that talent development capabilities. Because what I came from myself back in the day, and I'm going to date myself here. I used to support SideQuest drives.
You're old,
right? Yeah, thanks, Pascal. My hairline's better than yours, pal. So
I know. I'm very jealous.
So, but I used to support SideQuest drives and Gateway 2000 computers, even pre Windows 95 on the phone calls, right? So this was even pre-internet days. And so, getting drivers was, can you go to this bulletin board system, or we'll mail them to you, or whatever else like that. We'd mail them the drivers and floppy disks, right? So there's a bunch of that stuff that went on. And so I was able to, in technical support, by just going to one of these call centers. In Houston, there used to be the Jetronics. Clint, everybody that was a Cisco person in Houston, that's like VPs of stuff at banks now, Steve Mosrum and people like that, they all came up from Jetronics, right? And that was the call center for the Cisco L2 TAC back in the day. And those are the people that are, in charge now. The problem is there's this gap where, cybersecurity wasn't cool and IT wasn't really cool there for a little bit. Then all of a sudden, those people jumped up to VP levels and stuff like that, and they weren't mentoring those lower levels, and you can't get to the call centers anymore, right? So they're not here anymore. So there's a huge loss of talent, or even talent development, because we no longer have the call centers to actually get people their hands on. I know the L2 TAC for Fortinet is actually in Dallas. So I know midstream companies from Houston that have actually stolen people in Dallas from the L2 TAC and actually put them out, and borrowed them and moved them down to Houston just to get the talent, for being able to deploy the stuff and put it in the midstream environment, right? So those call centers used to be a huge talent pool that people used to be able to pull from, and they're just not there anymore, right? So
outsourced.
That's part of the problem.
Yep. All right, so for the last 15 minutes here, it's the James Cabe Show. And this is where you get to talk about whatever you want to talk about. It could be, hey, it could be shameless plugs. You can talk about a topic you want to talk about. You can talk about anything. You can talk about yourself. You can talk about your company. You can even do a sales pitch. So where is it that you want to go next?
Cue up that buzzword button real quick. Okay. Get ready for this one. I want to talk about chaos resilience or chaos engineering. There you go. I like it. So, so Pascal, what's chaos engineering, my friend? You know this one.
Oh man, when you say chaos engineering, I'm thinking about the guy's name in Jurassic Park, where he explains that if I put a drop of water, I put a drop of water.
That's what I was thinking.
What's his name again? Oh my!
You got to do the whole this water droplet,
it's going to go this way next time.
Goldblum.
Next time.
We all love Goldblum. So
Jeff Goldblum.
What could possibly happen? I mean, we all think that every day. Oh, we got this new feature coming out. Oh, what could possibly wrong happen, right? Apple says they're going to, start scanning everybody's iDrives for specific kinds of pictures. Oh, what could possibly happen? Bad.
Yeah.
So, that's.
No, just metadata. We're only collecting metadata.
It's just metadata, guys. So, but
only for this.
No, I mean, it's just. So yes, I mean that's actually where some of the original term came from. Is that I read when I was in. And you ought to make fun of me for this. I did actually a book report in high school over chaos, the book. There's a book called Chaos, and it was about the science of chaos. It was basically about the mathematics. And they talked a lot about crystalline structure and things like that, and when things weren't chaotic, and then how the two matched up and what the mathematics were behind chaos. And that's that whole stochastic thing, which is what chaos is based on, stochastic math, is about that whole. The more energy you put into a system, sometimes it's heat, because that's energy, the more chaotic it gets, right? So the more crazy your storms get and everything else like that. So chaos is about trying to introduce, variance inside your networks and systems and stuff like that. So chaos engineering actually came out of Netflix. They originally came up with Chaos Monkey. And there's now a billion flavors of this same thing, this chaos engineering thing. And Chaos Monkey and stuff like that. You can download the code readily off GitHub to do chaos testing yourself. And what the idea of it is to produce a more resilient system by always having it tested when you least expect it, by essentially throwing chaos into your own network and proving that it's resilient. Now, we do this. There's some really, really good companies that are out there in midstream that actually flop their stuff over, I think, once a quarter or once a half, every year to make sure that their DR still works. And that's sort of like the idea behind of it. Can I go in and make sure my actual backups work and that we can actually flip-flop over and suffer a service outage? Now that's tough in ICS, as we all know, in OT. But there are, midstream companies that do this, or pipeline companies. There are manufacturing companies that do this sort of thing, and I've run into them. They're rare. They're the purple unicorn of the industry that do this. But it's exceptional and interesting when they do it, because that means they're actually prepared. Like the Boy Scout logo, I think used to be prepared. I don't know what it is anymore, but that's kind of the point is always be prepared, and that's what chaos engineering, the idea behind it, comes from. So because of that, and that idea, the chaos engineering idea and the chaos architecture behind what Netflix was doing, I wanted to replicate that into industrial control systems. So me and a good friend of mine that worked at the renewables energy company I worked at before going to work for Fortinet, had been talking about this for 10 plus years about, how we could make something more resilient or, more code based, because even then 10 years ago, things were headed more into code and DevOps and security ops, right? Is that whole, how can we make this system more resilient? Because HMIs at the time, we were making fun of them, were based on very, very old copies of Windows, and nobody would do anything about them, or even embedded Windows, and then sometimes embedded Linux that was possibly old, not to pick on Microsoft or Windows. But, so the stuff would just lie around and not be, all the time available. You have to go and reboot it. So big problems, especially with the HMIs, or human machine interfaces and SCADA. So we came up with Sensability IO, which is this idea behind trying to make a super resilient, human machine interface, so we always know what's going on, even have site survivability and all this other kind of good stuff in there, and then be able to essentially always offer all the time services and really have your stuff be up all the time and not have to go and reboot it or it fall off the network or have a truck roll or something else like that, because more and more these truck rolls are going to be more and more impossible or just not part of the norm. And can you prevent that from actually having, something that would be super duper resilient, that tests all the time, that you could go and even try to knock over and it never really goes down, just like your Netflix never really goes down. And they're constantly testing their network, right? They're constantly running Chaos Monkey and Chaos Gorilla and all the different sorts of chaos engineering against their own networks. And my Netflix really never goes down, except for when my home internet connection goes down, which is, not too often, unfortunately. But that's the idea behind it, is this idea, can I have this machine resilience behind it? And part of that is, can I do it on something as small as a device that's about that big, or maybe a little bit bigger, like a box of cigarettes, not to be un-PC, something like that, to be able to have all this stuff run on, and then be able to do code updates all the time, and basically be just like DevSecOps, but for the field. Can I have it not connected to the cloud? Can I have it not have to be dependent on somebody else's authentication system? So if they get pwned, I get pwned as well, right? That's the thing that some of this cloud stuff's missing, is you have to disconnect it. It has to be, resilient on its own, and it's not resilient unless you can disconnect it and have it still work, or never connect it and have it still work like the cloud, like DevSecOps, and still be 100% operational. So that's what we put together, and essentially it's some of the same architecture that Facebook's based on, that Netflix is based on, which is the containerized system that's automatically load balanced, automatically behind some sort of firewalling that's built directly into the system. That firewall or WAF is actually the only thing that offers the web interface, which would then be your HMI. And we put an API essentially over the top of all that. And then you build your web applications directly on top of the API, as opposed to, this idea that I have to go and have this middleware that always was working and stuff like that. No, you never have the middleware that you have your applications talk to. You have just the API that it lays on top of. The API makes all your data available across everything. And that's really where this stuff's got ahead, because if we do this, if we go to renewables, which requires, 10x the amount of land and 10x the amount of equipment sometimes just to make it work, because you're going to have, it's going to be on the level of wells, not the level of power generation plants, but the level of wells. So the well site will be taken over by the wind farm, the solar farm, and things like that instead. And your generation will essentially become what your exploration and production used to be. So we're almost going to remove E&P from the scenario completely, and then make it all midstream and generation at the site. So it's going to be this distributed generation everywhere, especially if you have solar on top of houses, and then make the thing super duper resilient by maybe even using the old well sites as batteries. Well, that's going to require 10x the amount of operational technology. And as you guys probably already know, the licensing for remote monitoring for operational technology is impossibly expensive. By the way, sales pitch again. So you might want to turn that on. So, and shameless one, right? So all this is super duper expensive to have remote monitoring and all this stuff. why wouldn't you just build the damn thing into an API that you can pull remote monitoring and it becomes part of the application infrastructure you build on? And that's what we did. So it's cool. It's whizzy. It's not cloud. It's something, we just go in as an appliance and you stand it up and it operates just like a cloud. And that's it. So that's what we built. And I'm super duper proud of it. But we are still what they refer to as pre-revenue. We've got a couple POCs in various places and stuff like that, but nothing 100% operationalized at this point, because in the OT world, things move very, very slowly. We only started the company really about 2.5 years ago. We got to minimum viable product about 1.5 years ago. And so we've only been selling for about a year full, and it was right during COVID. So we did get a couple POCs. They ended. They're like, yeah, well, this would be great when we start getting to renewals and stuff like that, and people can start deploying and we deploy this in field. We're just not there yet because this whole thing's been held off. So we're in a little bit of a holding pattern, but we're going to have, and this is another shameless plug, we're going to debut, regardless of being pre-revenue, at HughesTechCon. Michael Farnham's a good friend of mine. So is Sam Van Ryder. And those are the two class acts that run that particular conference. So we're going to debut there. We're probably going to be in some sort of innovation table and be able to talk about it and show it, because right now our minimum viable product actually will operate an entire electrical substation, motor operated disconnects, the actual turbines, breakers, all the transformers, all the switch gear, all the protection gear that's actually out there. We even have SEL, protection gear directly in the technical demonstrator. And we're going to show that this thing is going to be, that we'll be able to knock it over and you never notice anything going on. You could even patch and add new capabilities, in flight directly to the web interface, and nothing ever changes. None of your abilities ever go down and your data never stops coming in. There's no reboot. So it's super duper, it should be super duper interesting for a lot of people in the industry to come out and see us at HughesTechCon. If you haven't signed up, get in on it, because it's a great show and we're going to debut there. So that's a sales pitch. Those are all the buzzwords. Hit me up, break it down, say, oh, we hate cloud, which is fine. The cloud has actually given us some good things like 100% uptime. So Netflix has proved it. AWS, not necessarily all the time. Or AWS, occasionally they'll have data centers go down. But if you took it as an aggregate, the whole thing never really goes down, right? So they're always able to push things over and make things essentially work as long as you deployed it correctly. So that's the cool thing about it. Netflix did that and showed that you don't have to suffer any major outages. And I don't think in my memory that they have. And so if we can get the same thing with ICS and kill patching forever, because we know that patching doesn't happen, I think we'll be in a better place, at least a lot more resilient, so we can move forward with renewables or whatever everybody thinks the next, version of energy is going to be. I'm an old oil and gas guy. I believe in all the things all the time. So I don't believe in saying that we can't do something, because the market forces are the things that produce the major changes, right? The reason why I can go faster in an electric car is and sometimes longer on a refill is exactly why the electric car is winning. Because I've seen a cheap little Model 3 performance burn down a Ferrari, and there's maybe two orders of magnitude difference in the price of the cost of the damn thing, right? So if I can do that with electrical motors, hell yeah, sign me up, because me, it's about the speed, right? I'm a car guy. So.
I like the sound as well. So that's still combustion still has that sound. But I think
you're a Dutch oven. Of course, you like combustion.
Of course, I think we need a link. Hold on. I'm trying to help. I'm trying to help you here a little bit. You probably need it. But anyway, we need to come up with a. Do you have a link where people can go and get more information? Because you just gave
let me dump it into the chat window here real quick. I don't know if then Clint can actually.
Yeah, Clint can share.
Yeah.
It will eventually get into show.
And by the way, there's going to be there's a couple of questions in our stream chat that we're not going to get to on the show here. I encourage you guys, our guest and Pascal, who just shows up. I would encourage you guys to.
I'm just here for the fun.
Yeah, I would encourage you guys to go back to the show and answer some of the comments. That would help out. So yeah, let's get this link up here. And yep, there it is.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, that is about it. We're about out of time now, and I do want to tell you that you were the first to have a brand new. I made it specifically for you, a brand new banner here that whenever you were going over all your Leonard Big Bang Theory stuff, I did post the nerd alert. That is a brand new one. We've never used that banner before.
You're number one, and Clint's number two.
Well, I look like I look, and then of course, not many people as good looking as Ted Gutierrez. So I definitely deserve that one, especially when I go down the nerd rabbit hole. So.
We've never had a better looking guest host. Well, we had plenty of those, but guest.
Dude, he's got that cowboy look nailed. So yeah. You should see he's got a beautiful Chevelle too that you would absolutely love, Pascal. So,
all right, so everybody, so this is our guest today. Thanks for being a part of it, James Cabe from Sensability.com. There's the link if you want to check out all the stuff he was talking about and all the innovations that he's making in OT security. So thank you very much. Thanks everybody for joining us. And let me pull that off real quick. Hey, we finally get to wave this time and say bye to everybody. So thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next week.